Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Fluence Energy. It is time for another update and we have some very interesting developments since the previous video, and today we are looking even at a decently high quality trade setup that we can actually take advantage of in the near term that I would expect here. Now, for context, we have been tracking two main interpretations on this chart. The yellow structure has been the slightly more likely outcome to occur, but we had even a more bullish interpretation here in the white structure, where an impulse could have taken charge of this pattern if we managed to extend within certain structures. And that would have actually allowed even further extensions beyond what the yellow structure would have been capable of. But in the previous video, on the 3rd of February, right before this initial massive drop to the downside, we have provided two areas of resistance, one for each interpretation. So, for the white structure, we would have absolutely needed to hold here the 61.8% retracement down to the $26.2 level. This wasn't the case, and this was going to signal that this structure wouldn't manage to still extend to higher prices. So, already at that point, we would have had to discard this interpretation. Then, in the yellow structure, we provided an interpretation that would have expected even to form a top within one more high to the upside, yeah? That's all we really needed to have a full pattern within this area, and with a break below the $24.3 level, we would have had our probabilities strongly shift into the favor of having a more substantial top to be in place within this wave 5, and we weren't looking for any other alternative to allow extensions to higher prices from within this entire wave to the upside. Yeah, the break below the 61.8% retracement down to the $24.3 would have signaled a more substantial top to be in place within a wave 1, and the need to look for a much larger wave 2 correction, at least into the first level of support at the 38.2% retracement, which sits, funnily enough, at the $14 level, exactly where we have currently bottomed this last week within this entire push to the downside. So, we have reached our first level of support. We had our signal that this would likely happen with the break below the $24.3, and anyone who would have watched the previous video would have been aware that placing a stop loss below this region would be a wise idea, as we had a drop of over 40% since breaking the last level of support. That could have saved you quite a bit of money and would have allowed you to buy within an even much higher probability structure within this wave 2 correction. Without proper risk management, this is what can happen, yeah? Now, if you like these updates, if you like these structures that we provide and the roadmaps where, again, we provided this level of support that we signal that if it was going to be broken, you would get a much more substantial drop, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as we provide a ton of such content. We cover a very wide variety of stocks and different assets, and we focus on providing these extremely important levels to watch while providing a roadmap for the context of this chart. Additionally, it seems we didn't manage to get this last leg to the upside, which is something I always provide a warning for in my videos, especially as we head towards the end of a larger trend. So for context, we were looking for a wave 5 of a wave C of a wave 5 of a diagonal structure. Now, if you've been watching our channel, you would also know that typically after a diagonal structure, you would get very sharp corrections. Not always, but this is commonly the case. So I wanted to also highlight this as an example where we fail to get our preferred last extension to higher prices. It does happen. It could be the case that we got a truncation here. It could be the case that we would be able to track this count differently in a less than ideal pattern, something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 could be the case. Now, it's not something to overthink, but something to be aware of, as this is something that can regularly happen. Yeah, not to get the last leg to the upside towards the end of a larger trend is something we need to be prepared for, and especially be prepared with a very rigorous risk management strategy, as it would have saved you in the case of this structure up to 40%, as it dropped from the $24 level down to the $13.9 level. Now, in the case of this pattern, even as we dropped 40% from the last level of support, I would actually even go as far as to say that I prefer continuation to lower prices at the moment. And this is based on the idea that within this structure, I'm not tracking a truncation by the way, within this structure, I highly prefer that we have a 5-wave pattern to the downside, likely complete. I could track this as an impulse, I could track this as a diagonal structure. That's not really important really, but what is important is the idea that we would be looking with high probabilities for continuation to even lower prices after a 3-wave correction into our area of resistance in a supposed wave B, and that starts at the $19.4 and goes all the way up to the $27.7. Only with a break above this area of resistance can I really start to look for something potentially more directly bullish, and it is certainly possible to find a way to track this pattern as a 3-wave structure, but it's certainly not a preference for me. It is certainly not something that needs to be the case, and based on the larger time frame, and even on the proportions of what I would expect for such a wave 2, I would highly prefer that we actually get an extension to lower prices. Now, we can remove even this white interpretation, and within this structure, even within the wave B, we can see a decent push to higher prices. Remember, this structure can extend as high as the $27.7 without really shifting anything from the larger time frame perspective. So we have a couple of options to look for such an opportunity. So we either identify an initial 5 move to the upside that could allow a potential A, B, C structure to form within this large wave B with high probabilities, yeah? Basically the same pattern we are tracking on the larger time frame in reverse. And then there is also the option to consider some accumulation within this larger time frame, as there is no signal at this point that this wave A would already have a bottom in place. You see, even though we formed here the most substantial reversal ever since we actually started this entire push to the downside, we only have a 3-wave pattern to the upside so far, so this isn't suggesting with high probabilities that it will succeed in forming the next wave to the upside. Sure, this could be turning into a leading diagonal in a wave A, but only at that point would we really be able to look with high probabilities for a correction and accumulation within that area. But as it stands right now, I could see within probably multiple ideas structures that would allow extensions to lower prices, and I'm not endorsing a trade setup within a wave B, especially if you are randomly buying a falling knife within this wave A, unless you have rigorous risk management where you account for the possibility of this to be a much more direct breakthrough, and yeah, you position yourself accordingly, knowing that only below the 78.6% retracement can you really place a reliable stop loss. Only below this last level of support can we really start to look for this overall pattern to higher prices to really fail. As we head deeper into this area of support, it might be interesting to do some accumulation, even if in this push to higher prices we are only creating a wave B. That is not a guarantee, and it might be a good strategy to accumulate even within this area of support. Yeah, we have between the $14 down to the $5.6, and to look for the reversal to higher prices that could even break the area of resistance, which once again, above the $27.7, we could be looking even at a larger wave 3 to form in a much more direct fashion. And for example, if we were to have a bottom in place currently within this wave 2, Within the idea of a wave 3, we would be looking to reach the 138.2% extension of the wave 1. Well, that sits at the $321. Now, this is within a very bullish interpretation, but let's say within a less overwhelmingly bullish interpretation or such a scenario, we could be looking at a more conservative ABC structure where even within the wave C, the ideal target is the 100% extension. And this next wave to the upside is expected with high probabilities to be a 5-wave pattern. We should be able to capture good value regardless if it manages to reach the 100% extension or not. Now, none of this is financial advice. I am looking at this area of support with high interest, but ultimately, everything that you do is your own decision and your own choice. I do not believe today it is necessarily worth it to focus on the smaller time frame. We can do a future update and deal more with that. For now, I believe it best to let all of this information sink in and focus heavily on the larger time frame, as this is the most important structure. And if we manage to push lower within this wave A, well, I would need to adjust this area of resistance within wave B. But unless this somehow transforms into a 3-wave pattern to the downside, I will still be looking for a wave B correction and a wave C to take us to even lower prices before looking for a more likely bottom within the wave 2, as a wave 2 pattern is expected to be a 3-wave structure. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoy our content and you want to support us, check out our channel membership. And if you want more such high quality structures, you can even sign up to our channel newsletter, which by the way is completely free, where we identify for you those patterns, those opportunities. But other than that, let me know what else you would like me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.